The hailstorm came without warning that Tuesday afternoon in downtown Portland. Michael Harrison was leaving his office building when the first ice pellets began to fall. At 52, he'd learned to read the sky, but today had fooled him. Within seconds, the hail intensified, pounding the pavement like angry marbles from heaven. Michael was a successful man by most measures, CEO of a mid-sized consulting firm, a corner office with a view of the Willamette River. But success had come with sacrifices. His marriage had ended 5 years ago, and his daughter Emma was away at college. The big house in the suburbs felt emptier each day. He pulled his suit jacket over his head and was about to make a run for his car when he heard it. A small, frightened cry. There, huddled against a park bench across the street, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, wearing a pink dress that was already soaked through. Her blonde hair was plastered to her face, and she had her hands pressed against her ears, trying to block out the violent sound of ice hitting concrete. Michael didn't think. He just ran. He crossed the street through the pelting hail, feeling each impact against his back and shoulders. When he reached her, he crouched down and wrapped his jacket around her small frame. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said gently. "I've got you." The little girl looked up at him with wide, tear-filled blue eyes. She was trembling. "Let's get you somewhere safe," Michael said, scooping her up carefully. She didn't resist. She simply buried her face against his shoulder as he carried her toward the covered entrance of a nearby coffee shop. Inside, the warmth embraced them. The barista, a young woman with concerned eyes, quickly brought over some towels. "Is she yours?" the barista asked. "No," Michael said. "I found her outside, alone." He set the little girl down gently on a bench and wrapped the towel around her shoulders. She was still shaking, but whether from cold or fear, he couldn't tell. "What's your name, honey?" Michael asked softly, kneeling so he was at her eye level. "Sophie," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name." "I'm Michael. Can you tell me where your mom or dad is?" Sophie's lower lip trembled. "I don't know. Mommy was supposed to pick me up from school, but she didn't come. I waited and waited. Then I started walking home, but I got lost, and then the ice started falling." Michael's heart clenched. This child had been wandering alone, lost and scared. "It's okay, Sophie. You're safe now. We're going to find your mom, I promise." The barista brought over a hot chocolate, and Sophie wrapped her small hands around the cup. As she sipped it, some color returned to her cheeks. "Do you know your phone number, or your address?" Michael asked gently. Sophie shook her head. "I just moved here. I'm still learning it." "How about your mom's name?" "Jennifer. Jennifer Parker." Michael pulled out his phone and was about to call the police when Sophie said something that made his heart stop. "My mom used to tell me about you." Michael looked at her, confused. "About me?" "Sweetheart, I think you might be mixing me up with someone else." But Sophie was staring at him with those intense blue eyes, suddenly more focused. "You're Michael Harrison," she said. "You have a daughter named Emma. You like sailing, and you helped my mom a long time ago." The coffee shop seemed to tilt slightly. Michael sat down heavily on the bench beside her. "Jennifer Parker," he repeated slowly. And then it came back to him. 25 years ago, he'd been a young associate at a law firm, barely making ends meet. He'd been grabbing lunch at a diner when he noticed a young waitress being harassed by a customer. The man was drunk, aggressive, demanding a refund and calling her names. Michael had intervened. He'd calmly asked the man to leave, and when the man refused, Michael had called the police. Afterward, he'd left the waitress a generous tip, along with the note telling her that she deserved to be treated with respect. Her name had been Jennifer. "Your mom was a waitress," Michael said quietly. "At Danny's diner." Sophie nodded eagerly. "She told me you were kind when nobody else was. She said you reminded her that good people existed. She said she never forgot you." Michael felt a lump forming in his throat. He'd never thought about that moment again. It had seemed like such a small thing at the time. "Is your mom okay?" he asked gently. Sophie's eyes filled with tears again. "She's sick, really sick. She has cancer. That's why we moved here, to be closer to the hospital. But she gets confused sometimes from the medicine. I think maybe she forgot to pick me up today." Michael's professional instincts kicked in, but beneath them was something deeper, a protectiveness, a connection. "Sophie, I'm going to help you and your mom. First, let's find her." "Do you remember the name of the hospital?" "Oregon Health Center," Sophie said. Michael called the hospital and, after some explaining, was connected to a frantic nurse who confirmed that Jennifer Parker had indeed suffered a reaction to her medication that morning and had been confused about the time. She'd just realized her daughter wasn't home. 20 minutes later, a taxi pulled up outside the coffee shop. A woman stepped out, thin and pale but moving with desperate speed. Even changed by time and illness, Michael recognized her. "Sophie," Jennifer cried, rushing inside. Sophie jumped up and ran into her mother's arms. They held each other, crying, while Michael watched from a respectful distance. After a long moment, Jennifer looked up and saw him. Really saw him. "Michael Harrison," she whispered. "It really is you." "Hello, Jennifer." She stood, still holding Sophie's hand, and walked toward him. Her eyes were filled with tears, but also with something like wonder. "I can't believe you were here. I can't believe you were the one who found her. Your daughter told me you used to talk about me," Michael said, feeling strangely shy. Jennifer nodded. "That day at the diner, I was ready to quit. Not just a job but everything. I was young, alone, pregnant, and scared. I thought the world was just cruel and ugly. And then you showed up and reminded me it wasn't." She touched her daughter's head gently. "I named her Sophie because it means wisdom. And I told her stories about kindness. About how one person can change everything. You were always in those stories." Michael felt something breaking open inside his chest, something that had been closed for a very long time. "I just did what anyone should do," he said. "But you did it when no one else would," Jennifer replied. "That matters." They talked for over an hour in that coffee shop while the storm passed. Jennifer told him about her life, about Sophie, about the cancer and the treatments. She'd been alone, raising Sophie, working as a teacher until the illness made it impossible. Michael listened, really listened, and as he did, he realized how long it had been since he'd connected with someone on this level. His life had become all business meetings and quarterly reports. He'd forgotten what it felt like to just be human with another human. When it was time to leave, Michael offered to drive them home. Jennifer accepted. In the car, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from her ordeal. Jennifer sat in the passenger seat, looking out at the rain-washed streets. "Thank you," she said quietly, "not just for today, for that day, all those years ago. You gave me hope when I had none. I built a life on that hope. I raised my daughter with that hope. You did all the hard work," Michael said. "You should be proud." "I am, but I'm also tired and scared." She turned to look at him. "I don't know how much time I have left. The doctors won't say, but I can tell. I'm running out of road, and all I can think about is Sophie. What happens to her when I'm gone? I have no family, no one." Michael pulled into the parking lot of a modest apartment complex. He turned off the engine and sat in silence for a moment. "I know we just reconnected after all these years," he said carefully. "And I know this might sound strange, but I want to help, however I can." Jennifer smiled sadly. "You've already done so much." "I mean it. Let me help with medical bills, with Sophie's school, with whatever you need, please." "Why would you do that?" Michael thought about the question. He thought about his empty house, his distant relationship with his own daughter, the way he'd let life become just a series of transactions and achievements. "Because 25 years ago, you gave me something too. You didn't know it, but you did. You gave me a reason to be better, to do better. I just forgot for a while." Over the following weeks, Michael became a regular presence in Jennifer and Sophie's lives. He helped Jennifer navigate her medical care, finding better doctors and treatments. He spent time with Sophie, taking her to the park, helping with homework, just being there. Jennifer's condition was terminal, but with better care, she had more good days, days where she could play with her daughter, read her stories, make memories. One Saturday afternoon, the three of them went to the waterfront. Sophie ran ahead, chasing pigeons, while Jennifer and Michael walked slowly behind. "Emma called me yesterday," Michael said. "I told her about you both. She wants to meet you." "Your daughter?" "She's been worried about me. She said I sound different on the phone lately. Happier." "I told her about finding Sophie in the storm, about reconnecting with you. She said it sounded like fate." Jennifer laughed softly. "Maybe it was. Maybe we all needed to find each other." "When you get better," Michael began. But Jennifer stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. "Michael, I'm not going to get better. We both know that." "Jennifer, listen to me. I need to ask you something. Something important." They sat down on a bench, watching Sophie play in the distance. "I want you to be Sophie's guardian," Jennifer said. "When I'm gone." "I know it's an enormous thing to ask. I know you have your own life. But I also know you're a good man. The kind of man who runs into a hailstorm to save a little girl. The kind of man who stands up for people. I trust you. More than that, Sophie loves you already. She calls you Mr. Michael, but she talks about you like your family." Michael felt tears in his eyes. "Jennifer, I would be honored, but are you sure? I'm a single man in my 50s. I don't know if I'm father material anymore. I barely see my own daughter." "You're exactly what Sophie needs. Someone who remembers that kindness matters. Someone who shows up. That's all any child needs." 3 months later, Jennifer passed away peacefully in hospice. Sophie was with her, and so was Michael, holding Jennifer's hand. In her final hours, Jennifer had looked at him and whispered, "Thank you for being the person I told her you would be." The funeral was small but beautiful. Emma flew in from college and met Sophie for the first time. The two of them sat together, holding hands, both grieving women they'd loved. Afterward, Michael officially became Sophie's guardian. It wasn't easy. There were legal hurdles and emotional challenges. Sophie grieved deeply for her mother, and there were nights when she woke up crying, calling for someone who would never answer again. But Michael was there, every single time. He learned to braid hair and pack school lunches. He learned about the difference between Elsa and Anna. He learned to be patient with tantrums and gentle with nightmares. And slowly, his house stopped feeling empty. Emma came home more often, eager to spend time with her new sister. The two of them bonded over teaching Michael about modern children's books and convincing him that, yes, ice cream for breakfast was sometimes acceptable. One evening, a year after Jennifer's passing, Michael and Sophie were sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset. Sophie was reading a book, her head resting against his shoulder. "Mr. Michael?" she said softly. "Yes, sweetheart, can I call you Dad?" Michael felt his heart crack wide open. He pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. "I would love that more than anything. Mom said you would. She told me that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, the ones that find us in storms." Michael smiled through his tears. "Your mom was a very wise woman. She said you saved her that day at the diner, but I think she saved you too. And then you both saved me." Michael thought about that, about how one small act of kindness, done without thought of recognition or reward, had rippled forward through time, about how a hailstorm had brought him the family he didn't know he needed. "I think you're right," he said. "I think we all saved each other." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. Inside the house, Emma was making dinner. From somewhere down the street came the sound of children playing. Michael held Sophie a little tighter and thought about Jennifer, hoping somehow she knew that her daughter was loved, was safe, was home. And in his heart, he heard her voice, as clear as that day in the diner 25 years ago. "Thank you for reminding me that good people exist." "Thank you," he whispered back to the evening air, "for reminding me what really matters." Sophie looked up at him. "Did you say something, Dad?" Michael smiled. "Just thinking out loud." "Come on, let's go help your sister with dinner." Hand in hand, they walked inside, where light and laughter and love waited, where family, chosen and cherished, made every day a little less lonely and a lot more full. The storm had passed, but its gift remained.